Raising the Bets is brought to you by the Star Quest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give. You're listening to Raising the Bets. We're a Catholic couple raising 5 kids outside of Boston. Join us as we share the joys and challenges of marriage, homeschool, and our adventures near and far as we make sense of the world and experience the best parts of our culture. I'm Dom Bettinelli.
And I'm Melanie Bettinelli.
You know, I've always kind of wondered about that intro, the make sense of the world part.
Do we? I don't know that we make any sense.
The world doesn't make sense.
That seems highly aspirational to me.
Yes, as we try to make sense of of course, then you're adding words and it becomes less pithy. And pithy is what I'm all about.
Uh-huh.
I'm feeling pithy tonight. So let's start with some listener feedback.
Okay.
From last time. Our listener, Mandy, sent an email and said, I just wanted to send a correction to the latest episode. Val Kilmer is still very much alive. He has survived throat cancer, is unable to speak clearly. Thanks for the show each week. Well, you're welcome,
Did you
Mandy.
say that he was dead?
I did say he was dead. I should not have. I had the clearest.
I trusted you.
Well, I had the clearest recollection of people mourning the dead, Val Kilmer, but I must have got it wrong. I don't know what. I guess they were talking about the movie Top Gun Maverick and how he wasn't able to speak in it and that he was no longer able to speak clearly because of the throat cancer thing. And that must have transposed. I don't know.
Uh-huh.
Do you know there was a website for the longest time that the whole website was, is Abe Vigoda dead?
Okay.
Because Abe Vigoda lived forever. He was in the TV show Barney Miller back in the 70s. He was also in The Godfather. That is a little movie about some Italian Americans called The Godfather.
I've never heard of it. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, so he was in that too. But he was most famous for Barney Miller, which is this cop detective sitcom.
I've heard of it. I don't know anything
in the
about
70s. It was very funny, I have to say. It was a very funny show. And he was in it, and he was old. He was old when he was in The Godfather. He was old, and he lived into the 2010s.
Okay.
Because people would always be surprised. Abe Vigoda's still alive?
Uh-huh.
And so someone created a website. In fact, I'm going to look up Abe Vigoda and find out how old he was.
How old was he?
When he was born in, so he died in 2016 at the age of 94. He was born in 1921. And he was in, let me see, television. He was in Barney Miller. Where's Barney Miller? Barney. In 1975 to 1977. It wasn't even on that long. It's funny. So that means 1975 minus 1921. He was my age in when he was in Barney Miller. He looked like he was old and decrepit and on the edge of retirement.
Uh-huh.
That was one of the funny shticks of the show, is that he was always wanted to retire. He was 54. It is amazing to me, not that I'm the fountain of youth, but it is amazing to me how much older people looked in the past at younger ages.
Mm-hmm.
The first Doctor, William Hartnell, who played Doctor Who, the first Doctor, was 58. And they played him as this decrepit old man. It's wild to me. Anyway, just a little thing. So thank you, Mandy, for correcting my error. I'm always happy to be corrected. That's my life.
I didn't say anything.
So let's moving on. Lots been going on this week.
It's been a busy week.
We started off this week with a very important day.
Halloween,
of course. And my birthday. So as longtime listeners know, my birthday is Halloween. And so we always put off we don't really celebrate my birthday. It's not like we do stuff. But because it's Halloween, we always we kind of make do with the celebration.
We defer the cake until today.
Yeah, we actually deferred. You made the cake. We had it today after dinner, and it was nice.
Because really, nobody wants cake on top of Halloween candy.
No, for several days.
Yeah, we've tried that in the past, and we learned our lesson.
Yes. So let's talk about Halloween. So as our custom, we always order Chinese on Halloween because Chinese is my favorite takeout and not yours. And so we almost never get it except on Halloween. And so we ordered takeout. And it's also an easy dinner while, before the kids go out. Although we ordered a little late this year.
Yeah, somebody didn't order very early.
I got work. I'm busy. Monday was a very busy
work day. It's not like I can
day.
order for you, though.
I know. You don't know what to get. No. So I just lost track of time, and it was like, oh my gosh, I got to order now. I mean, the
kids actually ended up going out trick or treating, coming back, eating dinner, and then going out trick or treating for a second run.
Well, and that was the big thing this year was for the first time they went without us.
Yep.
Bella is old enough.
Were like, who's going with them? And at first I was like, well, I guess you usually go with them.
They always wanted me to go with them.
Like I stopped and thought about it. I'm like, Bella's 16, Sophie's 14, Ben is 13, Anthony's 11, and Lucy's 9. They don't need an adult. They've got 3 teenagers. They're fine.
Right. And our neighborhood is safe, and I've got them trained to be careful, carry a lantern, make sure people can see them crossing the street.
They have a 16-year-old. They're fine.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is they haven't really gone trick-or-treating in like 3 years.
Right.
So like 2019, in 2020, obviously, was there trick-or-treating? I don't think there was. I
think there was minimal trick-or-treating.
Oh, people were like putting bowls
outside their doors and stuff. Like there were people, but the kids did go trick-or-treating.
They got candy.
Yeah.
But there wasn't a lot. It was a pretty subdued year.
It was a quiet.
And then last year we didn't trick-or-treat at all because we'd had our house disaster.
We went over that.
Yeah. And we were in Plymouth and the kids were sick and etc. So this year, boom, it's Halloween again, and we got a lot of kids. We must have had a lot of families with younger kids move into the neighborhood over the past 3 years.
We've definitely had a lot more kids move in.
Yeah, all the old people are dying off or moving out, which is interesting. So I love giving out candy on Halloween. I just love the kids coming to the door and oohing on over their costumes, and people being friendly. Hey, how you doing? Waving from the door to the parents at the end of the driveway. And, hey, it's a wonderful neighborhood thing. It's one of my favorite days. It's not just because it's my birthday, but because, at least in New England, this part of New England, you don't get a lot of that neighborhood friendliness. No, you don't. We're God's frozen people, and people don't sit on their porch and wave hi to them and invite them over.
People don't talk to the next door neighbors. They just.
How many times we've lived here for 12 years, right? Since 2008. So 14 years.
14 years.
Yep. So 14 years. How many times have we talked to the neighbors to the south of us, on the road?
Maybe a handful of times. I could probably count them on
I've never talked to the dad. I've talked to their adult son several times. I've gone to the door once or twice when the kids' ball has gone into their backyard.
Yeah, mostly when balls or drones have gone over the fence.
Or I've talked to their daughter Amy. When she was young,
when she was little, she used to play with Bella.
Yeah, but yeah, now. We've had a couple sets of neighbors on the other side, and we've talked to the neighbor kitty corner behind us, the one with the dogs, Michelle. She's really nice, and the people behind us. So we've talked to them, but we're not close.
No,
I wish we were. I wish we had that kind of neighborhood. But the nice thing is our kids are becoming friends with more of the neighborhood kids. They're doing lots more playing together.
Yes,
and I think that sort of thing naturally brings parents together, hopefully.
Maybe.
We'll see. But anyway, Halloween was really nice. You and I took turns answering the door. We actually kind of almost ran out of candy. That would have been.
Yeah, I was giving out like 2 or 3 pieces per kid at the beginning, and then I had to switch to 1 piece per kid.
Next year, we definitely have to get more. Like, who is it? Shelly, who lives in Houston, said they had they gave out 900 pieces of candy.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot of candy.
They have like a very busy neighborhood. So the one parent, I was like telling the kids, hey, it's my birthday today. And so, when it's your birthday on Halloween, you just tell the people it's my birthday and they give you extra candy. And one of the moms like, oh, it's your birthday here. Happy birthday. And she hands me a nip bottle of vanilla flavored vodka.
Yep.
I've heard that there's like some neighborhoods, there are traditions where like there are cocktails for the parents at the door. Like the parents have cocktails as they walk around. I'm not sure that's a great idea, but I'm intrigued. Tell me more. I will come to your TED Talk. So, yeah. What were the kids' costumes this year?
Okay, so Isabella was Anastasia from the musical.
Yep.
Not the cartoon musical, but the live version musical.
The Broadway musical.
The Broadway musical, yes.
Yep. She and Sophie and Lucy are very big on the soundtrack to that.
Yes. Yep. Sophia was a character from a web comic, which I don't know.
Who knows? But it involved having a fancy hat with flowers.
She used my gigantic fancy hat. We put a scarf on it and a bunch of fake flowers, and she wore a fancy costume with lots of jewelry, and she looked gorgeous.
Yes. Bella, as the character from Anastasia, she actually looked like an adult. I thought people might think she was the parent.
Yeah,
she looked very grown up.
She looked like she could have been a parent. Lucy was a ninja. Ben was the radioactive Boy Scout.
Yes, that's right. From Mysterious World.
He was just going to be a Boy Scout. That was his like goofy, I'm just going to wear my Scout uniform because I can wear that. And
he's a 13-year-old boy.
Because he's a 13-year-old boy. But I kept suggesting radioactive Boy Scout, and he was like, he would kind of giggle. And so then I made him a radioactive sign. Like I just printed off a radioactive symbol from the internet and then wrote radioactive Boy Scout. And I'm not sure that anybody in our neighborhood got it, but it gave me a giggle.
I posted it on our social media, especially the Mysterious World accounts, and people did like it there. So there was, and I suggested that next year people should do themed costumes from Mysterious World.
I think that would be awesome.
I would love to see that. We could do a
Mysterious World costume contest.
Yes. I mean, there's so many good options. I mean, it would be really cool. There could be some good ones. Bigfoot, the Loch Ness Monster.
Did you do a Loch Ness Monster show?
Oh, that's coming up.
Oh, but you haven't. December. You haven't done one yet.
Well, by next October,
next year you will have.
Exactly.
Done. Okay.
Yes, the Loch Ness Monster. Very excited. So we've already recorded that. So the Cottingley Fairies. I mean, there's so many things you could do.
Oh yeah.
Wizard clip. That would be, you could do.
How would you do
clip? You could have someone with scissors and a sheet and you're cutting things or whatever. I mean,
or you could be Prince Galitzin.
Yeah, Prince Galitzin, the Russian prince who became a Catholic priest, which is really cool. Anyway, so that was Halloween. Then this weekend
we didn't do Anthony. Anthony was a night.
Anthony was a night. That's right. Sorry, Anthony.
We got a little bit sidetracked by the radioactive Boy Scout.
We did finally. We got some decorations. We got some Halloween decorations.
Well, sort of roundabout way, because summer camp for the scout camp this summer, there was a theme of pirates, and so I bought some skeletons, plastic skeletons, online for the kids to use.
Not real skeletons online. That's a different part of the internet.
That's not the part of the internet that I frequent.
Yes.
Anyway, I bought plastic skeletons. The kids used them to decorate their campsites. And then we had them left over for Halloween.
And so they created these like skeletons emerging from the dirt in front of us. And there was an old piece of slate from a walkway that one of them propped up like a gravestone.
They propped up like a gravestone, and then they put like 2 hands and feet in a skull, like it was coming up out of the earth.
Like he was climbing out of the dirt. Yeah, that was pretty good. And then after Ben was done trick-or-treating, he hung his radioactive Boy Scout sign on the gravestone. So that was good. Yeah. So that was fun. They did a good job. All right. Are we done with Halloween?
I think we're done with Halloween.
Okay. So skip ahead, Brother Maynard, to Friday and the weekend. And we had a scout camporee. Only the girls' troop was going. Apparently, the boys' troop had some of the boys, not the entire troop, had been very busy over the past 3 weeks with camping things. Our boys weren't involved in that, but the leaders were kind of burnt out, so they didn't do that. So their troop didn't go, but the girls' troop went, and it was really nice. So they had our 2 girls and the senior patrol leader, Ayane, and a new girl, Kendra, and her dad, Frank, came along. And Frank's a longtime Boy Scout from ages past and had been a counselor at Camp Squanto and all this other stuff. And he was very excited that she was interested. And Frank is actually, I know Frank from years ago because he's been a SQPN listener for a long time. And we met Frank with a Father Roderick meetup back in 2016, I think it was. Frank and Kendra, they came to the meetup.
Which I don't remember, but I take your word for it.
No, I very specifically remember because she was so cute. She was this little tiny peanut, and she was very excited to be there, and it was really nice. So they came along, and so we came to the camporee. We had amazing weather. This was this weekend, and tomorrow too, like Monday too. 70s, mid 70s. Today was kind of cloudy, the Sunday, but Saturday was brilliant, sunny, and really nice. In fact, almost too sunny. I had to put up the canopy to keep the sun off my head because we were in a field, in a camporee field. But we get there on Friday night, set up in the dark, and this troop that was right next to us, Troop 95 from Sharon, they had a string of lights around their campsite, which was really cool. It's like to kind of delineate their place.
Like in the air or on the ground?
In the air. Like they had
poles?
Yeah, well, they had tripods, lashings of staves.
Oh, our kids should do that.
Right. Well, because
like Christmas lights on them?
They were bigger bulbs.
Oh, okay.
And I'm not sure what they were plugged into. Like me. So our vehicles, we could back right up to next to where our site was. So they might have plugged into
that's different from the last time we did the camporee.
Yes. Yeah. But if you have like a portable like battery pack or generator, there wasn't a generator because I didn't hear a generator running. But if you had some type of power source, you could run off of that.
That would be cool.
So, but we didn't have that. But that would be really cool to have that. I took note of that. That's what scouts do all the time. We see what the other troops are doing and we get ideas. So we set up and it was kind of humid. It was not hot because in New England, even if you have an Indian, well, can you call it Indian summer anymore? I don't know.
It's probably not politically correct.
I don't know. It's Indian summer. That's what we called it. So when you have these warm days in the fall, like in November, even though it's a warm day, it still gets cold at night. Like the temperature drops and it gets into the 40s, I guess. I think it was. And it was humid though. It was really humid. You could already start to feel like on the tents, they were getting wet as the temperature was dropping. By the morning, it was so humid, it was like it had rained out, but worse because the water had gathered on the underside of the rainfly and was dripping down on us inside the tents. It was really annoying. Like it was dripping in my head. I was like, I might as well sleep outside. But
Bella said her
sleeping bag was wet.
Got wet, and then she forgot to air it out, and so it was damp when she went to bed the next night.
Right. Yeah, she was calling me from her tent. I'm like, wrap yourself in your blanket. You'll be fine. I was like, there's a blanket in the car. You could go get that and lay it out under you. But she just was fine.
This is why at summer camp they had a rule that everybody had to air out their sleeping bag every day.
Yeah. I mean, it was very wet. It was so weird. Anyway, we got up in the morning. We had a really nice setup. I had our new camp stove and our camp tables. Frank has a nice camping griddle. I have the propane gas tank, the big one, that now I can hook the stove and a lantern to it. It's really nice. It runs forever and you don't have to, get the little green bottles and all that sort of stuff. It was really nice. we had a really nice setup going. It was it might have been the best setup we've had so far for Troop 13. We are firing all cylinders now, and
we're getting there.
Yes, and I spent most of the day hanging out at the site. I let the girls go off and do their thing, and it was good. And I read. I had no internet connection there, like no phone connection. The only thing, if you have Verizon, I guess you can get a signal there. Everyone who had Verizon was fine. I could not get a signal, so I just hung out and read my book on my Kindle. Then the girls last year, they did not have a good time because, well, our girls were stressed out from the house disaster thing.
Yeah, we were like in a rental house in Plymouth, and they were just tired and cranky and had a bad time. And
they were a little more, the leader, the scouts who was running things was a little more driven to complete all the tasks and compete with the others to win awards. And the way that the competitions were set up was kind of messed up. It wasn't good. It was confusing and stressful for the kids, and they just didn't have a good time. This time we emphasized, all of us adults, leaders, emphasized having fun is the most important thing. Do not stress. Do not try to do everything. Just have fun first. And they did. And then they won one of their events and came in third in two others. So, and of course it was the one they won was the Compass event. And they had just done the orienteering day last week. So
they were fresh on the whole orienteering Compass thing.
Yes, exactly. The senior patrol leader, Ayana, I mentioned, she did summer camp as a counselor this year, a camp counselor. And, she introduced Bella and Sophie and Kendra to all of her friends, the other counselors. And now Bella is really hyped up. She wants to be a counselor next summer.
I think that'd be awesome for her. I'm glad she's getting excited because I already thought that she should do it, but she wasn't like terribly thrilled. So I'm glad she's getting excited about it.
So the way it would work is that it's Monday through or Sunday night through Saturday or Friday night. So, and then they're home on the weekend and like for 2 months, which would be an adjustment for everyone, for Bella, for the other kids, for Sophie especially. It would be a big adjustment to not have, they're always together. And so it would be weird for them to not be together.
She's 16.
She's 16. It's time for her she'll be 17 then. It's time for her to kind of spread her wings a little bit. You have to get used to this idea. So it was good. And then they had the campfire Saturday night and skits and this all the old skits. It was like they have not added a new skit in 40 years. We've lost a few skits because they're no longer appropriate, but we still have like the JCPenney skit where like there'll be one guy standing there and a kid will come up and he's like, say to the kid who walks up to him, "Hey, nice shirt. Where'd you get it?" "Oh, I got it at JCPenney." "Oh, no, I got it from JCPenney." And he's like, "Oh, cool." And he walks off and someone comes in, "Hey, nice pants. Where'd you get them?" "Oh, I got them from JCPenney." And they go on and on. And then some kid will walk in and he'll be just in a towel. And it's like, "What's going on? Who are you?" "I'm JCPenney." It's always corny jokes.
JCPenney doesn't even exist anymore, right?
I don't even think it does. So I'm not sure how long that skit will continue on, but like, does
it even do
kids even know what JCPenney is? I don't know. It's like Woolworths or something,
Right.
It's at the soda fountain.
I mean, I remember shopping at JCPenney when I was a teen.
Yep.
But
and then there's the invisible bench skit, which everybody does. The candy store skit. There's all kinds of ones, so it was fun. And there was songs and it was a lot of fun. It was really nice. And it was nice because Sophie, who is she early to bed, early to rise, sort of person, she wanted to stay awake and aware. So we gave her some caffeine, some Coke, and she was able to make it to it. She was very pleased that she was able to make it to that. So that was good.
That was my suggestion. I said, give the girl some caffeine, caffeinate her. Of course, she was really super tired today.
She was.
She didn't sleep well after having caffeine late in the day. So she's just been wiped today.
She's slept most of today. Yeah.
Oh well, I guess it was a worthwhile trade-off, I think.
So one of the funny things that we were hanging out around camp, in between events, I think after they came back for lunch, and Sophie was kind of bored, and we were talking about the porta potties that they had set up there for all the scouts and adults to use. And Sophie just commented, I thought it was porter potty. And I'm like, okay, well, at least you didn't think it was porta pottery, because that would be the worst workshop ever. This clay is really weird. And then somehow we got to talking about how, imagine if the TARDIS looked like a porta potty
instead of
that was box. One thing that does not need to be bigger on the inside. Not improved by being bigger on the inside. Yeah, and just imagine the doctor, why do all these construction workers keep showing up and doing unspeakable things inside my TARDIS? And then we started talking about like instead of a sonic screwdriver, the sonic bidet, and then we started talking about how Romans used butt sponges to wipe their butts. Yeah. So yeah, it was highbrow humor. Actually, at the next troop over, this one guy was like, as Sophie and I are talking and laughing hysterically at this, he's like, I'm not trying to eavesdrop, but this is one of the funniest conversations I think I've heard. So yeah, it was pretty funny.
I'm rolling my eyes.
So while we were talking about TARDIS porta potties and other highbrow topics, what were you all doing while we were gone?
We had a pretty quiet day on Saturday. I baked you a birthday cake.
Yay.
And I did lots of laundry, and I washed all of our sheets and vacuumed our bedroom, and really exciting housekeeping stuff.
Exciting housekeeping, yeah. Did the kids?
I was behind on. The kids mostly played outside.
Good.
They all took showers.
They watched anything?
On Friday night. Well, we had a huge debate because Ben wanted to watch either Mulan or Luca because the other kids, Anthony and Lucy, had watched them while he was camping.
In a previous camping trip before Anthony was in the troop, right?
Before Anthony was in the troop, and so. But neither Lucy or Anthony was interested. Lucy was committed to watching Incredibles 2, but was willing to compromise and watch Incredibles 1 again in order to watch Incredibles 2. And eventually that's what they went with. So she watched Incredibles for the second time in a very short period of time.
Okay.
Because she watched it last time everybody went camping without her.
Right.
And then they watched Incredibles 2 last night. Okay. I did not watch Incredibles again. And even though I haven't seen Incredibles 2, I was just not really interested. So I did my own thing.
Okay. Well, we'll talk about the entertainment stuff that entertained you a bit, but
I bought them ice cream, and really it was a quiet weekend here on the home front.
Yeah. Good. So, so that's what we've been doing. So let's talk a bit about some food. With the crazy week it's been, we had Monday was Chinese food, Tuesday was scouts, and we had pasta or something, and Wednesday was curry, and Thursday was fried rice that I made.
Yeah.
And then Friday I bought you guys had salmon and had fish, while because we were on our way to the camp, we stopped for fast food. So the first real meal we could make, a new dish was Sunday tonight. And I had bought when I did the food shopping on Friday, I had bought some bone-in chicken thighs, and we do that fairly often. Just chicken, bone-in chicken thighs, just broil it, and some veggies and rice, and that's that. I decided to see if there was anything else we could do. And so I found this recipe for roasted chicken thighs with buttered mushrooms and leeks. Now, you had bought some leeks several weeks ago.
Intending to make potato leek soup, but it just, it never materialized.
Yes. You've had you've had trouble getting things cooked that you want to cook lately.
Yeah, it's just the days are getting away from me, and
I very often end up doing the dinners. You pick up dinners, but they tend to be the things that are within the repertoire, like
easy,
simpler things, right?
I don't know. I've been off my cooking game for a while.
Okay, we need to get you back on that horse. But in the meantime, I was looking at this recipe, and it's not too different from the normal thing we do. But here's what the recipe wants you to do, which is that you season them, salt and pepper. Then you melt a little butter in a nonstick skillet, and then you put the chicken in skin side down and cook it until browned on both sides. So you flip it halfway through for about 10 minutes. Then you take the chicken, put them on a rim baking sheet, and roast them in the oven at 450 until they're 175 degrees. Then you cook mushrooms, the leeks, and butter, more butter, in the pan that you've roasted the chicken in. But I didn't want to do that because whenever I cook chicken with the skin side down in a skillet on the stovetop, it smokes the house out.
Yeah, it's awful.
Yeah. So but I wanted to get those flavors. So what I did was I salt and peppered, and I also added the usual onion powder, garlic powder. I don't think I added anything else to the salt on both sides, on the skin and on the back of the chicken. Put them in the oven and roasted them. It took a lot longer than the 25 minutes.
Yeah, it always does.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
Well, I don't think our stove is calibrated, so I think that's part of it. But also, cooking on the stovetop in the pan would have cooked it faster. That's just
right.
I did the chicken in the oven from the start. In the pan, I got some of the drippings from a previous bake. Whenever we roast chicken thighs, I collect the drippings and keep them in the fridge. We both do that. And so there was some chicken fat and the chicken juices. Put it in the skillet with the butter and the mushrooms and the leek, and cooked them in there. And so then you cook those with the lid on till the mushrooms release their liquid. Then you take the lid off and let it cook down until the mushrooms are browned. Then you add thyme and garlic, and then off heat, you stir in some lemon zest and more butter. There's 4 tablespoons of butter. And then those are done. For the chicken, I waited till the chicken was pretty much done. Then I basted them with melted butter and then put them under the broiler for a few minutes to really crisp up the skin. And I think it came out pretty good.
It was good.
Yeah. I liked it. The vegetables are really good. I mean, cooking vegetables in like chicken drippings is always good. It's just the way around that. That's always good. I mean, it's pretty simple. It's not, groundbreaking. It's just you're cooking mushrooms and leeks and chicken drippings. So that was good. All right. So let's talk about things we've been reading and watching. I'm normally like, I'm still working on my book. I've been working on my book for 3 months. I read 3 things this week.
3 short things.
3 right? Shorter things. Well, no, the one thing was long. So 2 short things and 1 long book.
Oh, okay.
So I read a novella from the Expanse series. So the Expanse, that there was the TV show. It's a near future science fiction. And this was a novella that takes place in that world. And I don't want to spoil anything, but this one particular, the way it works is the aliens have created this gate ring system that people travel through in space from one solar system to another. And this particular colony has been cut off from the gates. I won't spoil why, but because that's from the main storyline. So it's been cut off. And so it takes place on this planet as this particular colony is starting to deal with the consequences of this. They're going to start running out of the things that they've gotten from civilization. The colony had been run by the scientist types, the professionals, the white collar people.
Uh-huh.
But now the blue collar types who have, more ability to deal with the rough and tumble, alien world are starting to assert dominance. And there's this one character that we know from the original novels, who has been trying to live under the radar, sees something developing, like something really bad is developing in this one guy who's starting to assert dominance. And he knows that if this guy gets in charge, it's going to be very bad for everyone. And so what does he do about that? So it's interesting. So it's called The Sins of Our Fathers. So fairly short. Then I read the book that you recommended, the first of the Murderbot Diaries, All Systems Red. Also a novella. I would say it's a novella.
The first 4 Murderbot books are all novellas. And then I think the 5th book is a longer book. And
it was as good as you said it would be. I
was a little bit worried you might not like it, so I'm glad you
really.
No,
it's right up my alley. It's the tech is good. It doesn't neglect the tech aspect. I always like the tech aspect, but it's not the most important thing. But the tech works within the context of the story, and it creates a world for him to live in, or the Murderbot, and the whole story is from the Murderbot's point of view, and for a reason you find out at the end. And I don't want to say it was predictable, because it wasn't, but I could see where it was going, and I liked where it was going. But it's very clear, as you say, like Murderbot is kind of autistic, is socially awkward, doesn't like talking to people.
Don't look at my face.
Don't look at me while you're talking to me, and don't talk to me if you don't have to. And I'd rather have a mask on than be exposed, and I don't want to talk about my feelings. And it was very interesting.
I just loved the narrative voice. Like, I really, really liked the character, like the story told from this character's point of view.
Right. And the fact that it calls itself Murderbot, like that's not what it's a security unit or sec unit. And
so Murderbot is not its official designation. It's self-deprecating.
It's a self-deprecating moniker. It has given itself for reasons you find out in the story.
No, to be clear, because I wasn't clear before I read the books. The Murderbot does not go around killing people in the stories.
Right.
It is not like on a robot on a rampage.
Right. It's not an assassin, or I kind of felt like that might be what it was.
Right. It's a security robot that calls itself Murderbot
because it's very cynical about
its role and what people expect of it and how people treat it.
Right.
And how scared people are of it.
Yes. Because people do generally treat the security units badly because they're just robots.
Right. And it's also, Murderbot is addicted to watching human TV shows.
Basically, yeah, TV shows.
Like streaming shows. And like every chance it gets, it shuts down and like just watches shows, like binge watches.
And hates to get interrupted when it's trying to watch shows.
But in the shows, security units are always the bad guy. And so I think there's a sort of reflecting the human expectation of, well, the bad, evil security unit that goes crazy and kills everybody.
Right. But there's also this idea that people in real life are not as good, like as understandable or as good or any of those things as the people in the shows that it watches. Like real people in real life are messier and more annoying and unpredictable, and so it doesn't like it. So it was a good story. I really liked it. I enjoyed that. I'm looking forward to reading more of them. The third thing, so I read that on Saturday while I was at the camporee, and I also read the entire book called Dead Man's Hand by James J. Butcher. He is the son of Jim Butcher, the author of the Dresden Files, the series of books that you and I have both raved about. So it's his son. And he's also written a book which involves what do they call it? Magical
fantasy.
realism,
Urban fantasy,
urban fantasy,
not magical realism. That's a totally different thing.
Okay, if you insist,
I do.
Okay, so urban fantasy. So it's a world where magic and witchcraft, witches, they call them witches, or we would call wizards in other contexts, but magic and magical creatures are not only real, but they're out in the open. People know them, and there's a Department of Unorthodox Affairs. They're called the Unorthodox.
Unlike the Dresden Files, where it's all hidden and nobody knows about them.
Yes, in this, it's out in the open. What's interesting is there's a character, an important character, who will remind you, as you read it, of Harry Dresden, which is really kind of funny. And then the main character is a younger guy who does magic, who is not a protege, but unsure and new and trying to make his way. And so it's kind of funny because this is the son and the father, and the connections. So it's about a world in which there's magic and magical creatures, like his father's most famous work, but it's different from that. It's also set in Boston, which is kind of interesting. He doesn't give too many identifying landmarks. He doesn't fall into that trap.
That's always safest.
Although at one point he talks about being north of Boston, in a town north of Boston, seeing Boston skyline in the distance. And I'm trying to think of where would that be. It had to be Lynn, like the only thing I can think of. Anyway, so it was good.
There's not a lot of places on the North Shore you can see Boston skyline from.
Exactly. It might be somewhere in Revere, but it's mostly Lynn, I would think, would be the only one that would fit this description. But it feels to me like James Butcher did not go visit Boston to do some like location scouting. He looked at Google Street View, and that was probably pretty much it. But I enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to reading the next one. He's certainly got a lot of talent, which is good. So I recommend that one. So that's what I've been reading. How about you?
I've been reading John le Carré, and I picked up a few other books and just picked up and put them down, but that's what I've been reading. So I read the second book in the series, the George Smiley series, which was called A Murder of Quality, which was not a spy novel. It's just a strict murder mystery, but George Smiley gets sucked into investigating it.
He's a spy, right?
He's a spy.
Yeah.
And so I finished that, and that was good. It's kind of a school story, like a British boarding school, elite school story. And so it was interesting, sort of seeing our character as a fish out of water.
Okay.
But doing an investigation. And then now I'm reading the third book in the series, which is called The Spy Who Came In from the Cold, which is a very, like, it is a spy novel.
Mm-hmm.
And George Smiley is a very small minor secondary character, at least in the first half of the book, which is what I've read. And so it's got the protagonist is a completely different guy, but he's a double agent, which is exciting.
Okay.
Evidently, this is like one of the like big double agent books. Like John le Carré has in his introduction says that like everybody was convinced when it was first published that he was like revealing all sorts of like very important like spycraft,
secret spycraft stuff.
This is what's going on, and like political stuff. Like this is what's going on in the Cold War, and he's like, yeah. If I was revealing anything important, they would not have let me publish the book.
Yeah.
Which I thought that was really, it was kind of fun. Like his intro was well,
the thing is, so much of what we think of as standard spy novel, spy movie stuff comes from John le Carré.
Mm-hmm.
Like he invented a lot of stuff. That and Ian Fleming. Right.
Who both worked for the British Secret Service. So.
Yes. So there was that. and you also watched something too.
Oh yes, I did. So while you were gone, I got bored and decided I really felt like watching a show while the kids were watching The Incredibles. And I ended up on BritBox just kind of bopping around looking for what looked interesting. And I ended up watching a show called Suspect, which I think had like maybe 8 episodes. It wasn't a super long show.
Mm-hmm.
And it starred James Nesbitt. Shoot, now I can't remember.
I will look it up.
He's an Irish cop who, in the first episode, he goes to the morgue on police business and then realizes that it's his daughter on the slab. And he freaks out and then goes off to hunt. She's purportedly a suicide, and he goes off to find the killer. So he goes completely off the reservation. The acting was great. The writing was good. But every single cop in the show was crooked. And I felt like it was a deeply cynical movie. It was very much about the relationship between this father who has failed his daughter and this girl who has, like, her adult life has basically been a train wreck. And every single person he meets says, your daughter is so messed up because you were such a bad father. And so, like, every single person he meets is like, oh, you're the bad father. Oh, you're the reason why her life was crap. And so you can see why he's so driven to solve his murder, because he feels such a debt of guilt towards her, towards having failed her. And so in terms of like the psychological drama, there was a lot of really interesting stuff going on, but it just felt really like a show with a bleak worldview. There was not a really good person in the whole thing. Everybody was crooked. Everybody was on the take. Everybody was morally compromised. So I can't really highly recommend it, although it was good. It just wasn't good. You know?
Yeah. It had it's 8 episodes?
I think so.
You watched all 8 episodes?
Yeah. They weren't long episodes. They were like 25-minute episodes.
Oh, okay.
Like,
wow.
They were short episodes.
Okay.
It had what's his name who played the master?
Richard E. Grant was in it. Oh, Sacha Dhawan.
Sacha Dhawan. Yes, he was awesome.
Richard E. Grant also played the master in the comedic. There was a comedic version of like a Doctor Who thing with Mr. Bean as the Doctor.
Oh,
yeah, that was really funny. Anyway, but yeah, Richard E. Grant was in it. Sacha Dhawan is in it. And James Nesbitt, who I don't know what else he was in. He was in The Hobbit, but he was under all that makeup.
Yeah,
as one of the doors.
I mean, he was good, but was a very
bleak,
very convincing, very driven, but not psychologically well character. Like he was haunted by not just his daughter's death, but he kept seeing her, like having visions of her, and they were very disturbing. He was just like, it struck me as a character who, even before she died, was not well.
Right. And like you said, every character is not a good person. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. I don't really like shows where like there's no hero. Everyone's an anti-hero or a bad guy. I don't. Yeah. Not my thing. I just can't get into it. Well, there's a lot of good stuff on BritBox. I feel like British crime dramas, and the British know how to do crime dramas. Let me say, they have some really good stuff there.
It's dangerous to live in a small town in Britain because everybody's always being murdered.
Yes. Oh, was it the actress who plays Vel in Andor in that?
Maybe.
Yeah, interesting.
Which one was she?
Neve Algar? Nicola?
Oh, she plays the roommate.
I just saw like a picture of her. I don't know if it's the same person. Maybe not.
She had an Irish accent, but I mean, she could be.
It is not.
It's not. Okay.
Yeah. Andor is still really good. It's kind of fascinating to see this. It's a very grown-up drama.
Yeah, I really am liking it a lot.
And Andy Serkis can act. He's not just, a voice doing Gollum. He can act.
He's
really good in Andor. What was I going to say about it? I mean, it's a prison drama right now, and it's been really good. And Bella came up with a really interesting point about the most recent episode, is that all the major characters are all in a kind of prison.
Yeah.
Some of their own making, some are gilded, some are very literal, but they're all in prison. So it's kind of interesting. Tony Gilroy is the showrunner on that. And someone asked him, what's it like to make a show that's a prequel where, the main character is going to die in Rogue One? Sorry, spoilers, I suppose, but he's going to die in Rogue One. And he's
not like Rogue One is a new movie.
Yeah. And he said, everything's a prequel because we all know we're going to die. The question is how do we live?
Right. Well, this is true.
So I thought it was a very astute observation and an interesting, memento mori sort of way to look at it. So his writing in this is really good. It's just been a really good series. I know some people who complained that it doesn't feel a lot like Star Wars. There's no lightsabers. There's no Jedi. There's no Sith. There's no Force. There's no Emperor. It's very much the gritty, nitty gritty of the regular workaday world of the Star Wars universe.
That's what I like about it.
I
don't know. I really like inhabiting the Star Wars universe and exploring the corners of it.
Yep. Same here. A lot of people, I think a lot of people who like it agree. All right, so let's move on and talk about this week's mass readings. This was the 32nd Sunday in Ordinary Time, and we had the first reading is from Maccabees about the 7 brothers tortured to death by the
Greeks.
The Greeks.
We're getting to the end of the year. Every time we hit Maccabees, I'm like, okay, Christ the King is how many weeks? I'm paging through the missal going, oh yeah, 2 weeks from now.
Yes, right. Heaven, hell, death, and purgatory.
All of the last things.
Yep. And then the gospel was the Sadducees with the divorce question about the woman who's marries the 7 brothers and whose wife would she be in the resurrection?
See, I keep thinking about what priest was it? Was it Father Curry who said the Sadducees were sad, you see, because they didn't believe in an afterlife?
Yes.
I have never forgotten which one. The Pharisees believed in life after death and the Sadducees didn't.
Yes.
The Sadducees were sad, you see.
So, and that's one of the interesting things is they don't believe in the resurrection. So the question they're putting to Jesus is, no pun intended, in bad faith.
It's deeply cynical.
Right. They're just trying to catch Jesus. Like, yeah, like we don't really believe in this stuff, but you do. So we're going to throw this ridiculous scenario at you and watch you try to spin your way out of it, which is basically Twitter.
I was going to say that's like modern social media, like the troll who shows up in the comm box and starts posing these trolley problems sort of scenarios, knowing that they don't believe in any of it and they're just trying to catch you out.
Right. Jimmy Akin does a really good job, by the way, of answering people like that. It's so good.
He does. His patience with people like that is really
so much more patience than I do.
Yeah.
And Jesus's answer is, she won't be married to any of them because there will not be marriage in heaven. There will be, they can no longer, they'll neither marry nor given in marriage. They can no longer die, for they are like the angels, which in that case, what he means is deathless, not we'll have wings and flit around. We don't become angels. Right. But
in fact, that actually kind of, because he says like the angels and not you will be angels, it makes it pretty clear that we're not
going to become angels. Right. So I thought that was an interesting aspect of the reading is, how they're just asking in bad faith. They don't really want an answer because they don't believe this anyway. What they're trying to do is to trip up Jesus, and he doesn't fall in the trap because he never falls in the trap. It's always hard to think about the whole idea that you know, in the resurrection, if God willing that you and I are both there, we won't be married. And, you know, what happens if like one of us dies first and the other one remarries? Wouldn't that be weird? But it won't be, obviously. I don't know. It's weird to think about. I don't like it. I don't like it. I mean, you know, I would want you to be happy. I'm not sure, you know, I don't know. It's kind of weird. Is it weird?
You're a lot more weirded out by life after death questions than I am in general.
I know. I have a real phobia about immortality.
You do. I find it.
It's anxiety. I have anxiety-induced immortality syndrome.
Something like that. It's kind of weird because I just find like everything about heaven just sounds awesome and intriguing to me.
Infinity, forever, like not stop. Oh, I can't talk about it. It's because I start to get anxious, and
that's so weird to me. It seems exciting. Like to me, it sounds like I think about heaven and I'm like, that sounds like the best thing ever.
Let's not talk about it. Okay. So moving on. I really can't. I can't talk about it. I shouldn't have brought it up.
I think my early imagination was formed by the last battle, and for me, heaven is like further up, further in. Like yeah.
So Father Pinto's homily, moving on. I'm not talking about it. Father Pinto's homily. Does anyone else have the same issues, or am I the alone in this? That's what I just want to know. So he started off by talking about Mozart.
He did.
The genius. And, you know,
who died at 35.
35. And had written
that's so young.
Hundreds of compositions by then. Always, he never had to rewrite a first draft. Every composition came out perfect the first time he wrote it.
Can you imagine? I can't
a singular genius. Like no one has ever been like Mozart. May never be another Mozart. Yeah, it's amazing. At 4, he was starting composing. He was playing multiple instruments. I mean, a singular talent, and died at 35. And Father says, what a waste that he should have died so young. What could have been had he lived to 70? And he says, it makes you wonder if this life is all there is. And I'm like, that's an interesting question that you're bringing up.
It is, although part of me wonders, would Mozart have continued to produce, or would he have
burned out?
Would he have burned out? Would he have become like a horrible, pathetic, drunken, awful man who had lost his talent and vision? Like maybe it was a mercy that he died young.
Well, it could be. We don't know. That's the mystery of God.
Right. I mean, we don't know.
Right.
But I guess there's always my story. There's like the storytelling part of my brain that's like, maybe it wasn't a waste.
Right. Well, I mean, it would have been a waste either way. Like if he had lived and wasted the talent in those other ways as well.
Right. That's true.
Your Father's point is that important things, good things, continue on even after death. You know, Mozart continues to exist in the afterlife. God willing, he's in heaven, but you know, we don't know. That's between him and God. But he says love endures past death and is enjoyed even more in the afterlife, which is what the readings are telling us. In fact, in the first reading, you know, as the first brother is dying, or one of the brothers is dying, being tortured, he says, "You accursed fiend, you're depriving us of this present life, but the King of the world will raise us up to live again forever. It is for his laws that we are dying." And like in each brother, as he's dying, you know, talks about how, you know, this life passes, but the next life is greatness, it'll be even more wonderful. Love, as much as love in this world is awesome, love in the next world will be even more. And one of the things Father says is that we have to live life like people of the resurrection, not like we're living in the tomb of sin and temptation. You know, we have to come out of the tomb and live as people of the resurrection. And he left us with a question from Jesus. When will you begin to love me? And that's an interesting point. Have we started loving Jesus the way we ought? Not just like saying, oh, I love you, Jesus. Are you loving Jesus?
He said that was from like a fellow priest who had told him about having, like, he was in prayer and then he heard a voice like say, when will you begin to love me?
Right.
That's
right. Yeah. Can you imagine praying and hearing a voice saying, so when are you going to start loving me? Oh, I thought I was.
Especially a priest. Like,
yeah,
this is somebody who's, given his life to Jesus. And
Jesus saying, you haven't yet. And that is a important question for all of us to reflect on. Have we started loving? Do we? I mean, it's something that's made me stop to think. Am I loving Jesus? I say I love Jesus, but am I loving Jesus? What does that mean? How does that look? What should that look like in my life? That's a big question. I'm not sure there's an easy answer that you can just like lay it out, but it is an important question. It's the question. It's the question. It's the only important question. So, as we approach Christ the King and the renewal of the liturgical year and Advent, it's probably not a bad question to make the center of our prayer life.
I have to say, this time of year, I like the liturgies at the end of the year. I really like this time of year when we're asked by the church to ponder these important questions. This is the dying time of year, and I really like the fact that our liturgies reflect that. We have All Saints and All Souls, and we have these readings about death and the afterlife, heaven and hell and purgatory, and we're really called to ponder these things, to remember that we're
Interesting thing. In the Northern Hemisphere, this is the time of the dying off of plants and we're going into the dark. In the Southern Hemisphere, it's springtime. There's new life and rebirth. And there was an article last year talking to people in Australia and the Philippines and other Southern Hemisphere places in South America. I think the priests, how do you preach about these readings when it's springtime? And it's like, actually, it's pretty easy, because instead of focusing on the end of this life, we're focusing on the beginning of the next life that we're all striving for. Like, yes, things end in this life, but there's a new life, then the resurrection that we're looking forward to.
Right. I mean, I think that while things seem to line up really nicely for us, I also think that there's a universal experience that, that it fits no matter how you do it. Like, I remember talking to our friend Jen Ambrose, who lives in China. She's an expatriate, and talking about how in China, white is the symbol, like the color white is what you wear for death.
Right.
Like for us, it's like new life, brides wear white, but in China, like brides wear red, white is like for death. And so but talking about how the symbolism then for like the baptismal garment, that white garment, is you're putting on death.
Well, it used to be in our liturgical vestments that they wore black vestments at funerals, but now they wear white vestments.
Right.
To remind us of the baptismal gown and that there is new life in death.
So in a way, in China, the white is almost like wearing the black vestments. Like there's this reminder of death. But I mean, it still means new life and rebirth, but there's a cultural weight to it that it doesn't have for us.
Right. But the thing is the liturgical year reflects the seasonal year, which is a cycle of life, death, and rebirth. I mean, it's just this, the universe itself teaches us about the eternity that we're headed for. We have birth, life, death, and rebirth. That's our future. That's our life cycle, shall we say? That's the life cycle of the world. I mean, it's kind of fascinating to think how God has made the world in a way to teach us this truth. And then the church, in her wisdom, continues to teach us this truth. And I love the fact that every year we kind of go through a retreat in November that makes us stop and reflect as we prepare for Advent. And that's like, as you mentioned, these readings leading up to the liturgical New Year and Advent.
And I have to say, I'm definitely feeling it, like the sunset today at 4:30.
Yes, daylight savings.
This is the time.
My old enemy. We meet again.
This is the time of year when I just start to go, oh, the long dark, long dark.
We just ended daylight saving time, so don't write to me to correct me. It's the change. I don't care if we stick with daylight savings or we do winter time or whatever you want to call it. Just stick with one. Stop changing the clocks, please.
I would by far prefer to have daylight savings time all year round.
So the one thing that was good about the clock change this year, so kind of switching gears for a second, is instead of getting an extra hour of sleep this morning, I got up with the dawn, because that's what you do when you camp, and we had an extra hour to pack up so we could be home in time to go to Mass. Because usually, we get up and it's race, and we might make it home in time for Mass. But this, we definitely had an extra hour to get home in time for Mass. So, yeah. Mass was an hour later by the solar clock, shall we say.
Right.
Anyway, but yeah, let's stop switching the clocks. That's my old rant. All right, let's wrap up there, I think. We'd like to take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create Raising the Bets, including Aaron L., John Z., Jeff F., Scott S., and Danielle H. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue Raising the Bets and all the shows at StarQuest. And you can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. And that's it for this time. Find links from our discussion in our show notes at sqpn.com/bets. That's BETTS. Send your feedback at the StarQuest Facebook page, facebook.com/StarQuestMedia. Send us an email at bets@sqpn.com or visit the StarQuest Discord community at sqpn.com/discord. Write a review at Apple Podcasts and share the podcast with your friends to help us grow our community and reach more listeners. So, until next time, I'm Dom Bettinelli.
And I'm Melanie Bettinelli.
Thank you for listening to Raising the Bets on StarQuest. Here's another show on the StarQuest Network you're sure to enjoy, The Catholics of Oz. Find it wherever fine podcasts are found or at sqpn.com/Oz.